Good morning, everybody. This is Deb from Just Do Something Homestead. And are you a new homesteader who wants to learn how to preserve food, but you just don't know where to start? Well, today we are going to learn the beginning steps to doing vacuum sealing. So we're going to talk about 3 different things and learn exactly what it takes to vacuum seal your food. The 3 areas that we're going to talk about today is the equipment that you need to vacuum seal, the benefits of sealing, and lastly, I'm going to show you step by step how to vacuum seal your food. There are basically 3 things that you're going to need if you want to vacuum seal your food. First, you're going to need jars. Second, you're going to need a vacuum sealer. And lastly, you're going to need dried food items that you want to vacuum seal. Let's start with jars. Now, I use canning jars, and the most common size that I use is a 1/2 gallon. And these canning jars, they come in cases of 6. Now, a couple years ago, I was getting them for $12.99, then $13.99 a case. You can still sometimes find that at Walmart, but unfortunately, I've been seeing them for $20.99 or $23.99. So if you are able to find these for less than $15, I highly recommend that you grab a few cases. The reason I stick with mostly 1/2 gallon is because we go through food pretty quick in this house. So this is cereal. This is a mixture of cereal. If I was to put it into a small jar like that, that is 1 serving. And for me, that simply is not worth it. So I want to fill up a jar. And for me, this is 1 week's worth of cereal. But you can use any size canning jar there is available. So if you want to use small ones, I use that when I'm drying things such as fruit powders. When I'm only using like a teaspoon here or there, then I definitely use the smaller one. You can also use pints, you can use quarts, or you can go up to the 1/2 gallon. Now the secret to this is everybody says, does it have to be a canning jar? The reality is it does not need to be a canning jar. What it needs is the lid that goes on top. So this one is a pint, and that is a regular mouthed pint jar. And so we have wide mouth lids, and as you see, that one's too big for that, so that would not work. And then we have regular mouth. Let me grab the box here. All right, and the regular mouth are smaller. So you can use any jar as long as one of those 2 lids is going to fit, either the regular mouth or the wide mouth. Here is an example of a jar that is recycled. You can actually see it still has some label on it, but that was pasta sauce that I bought in the grocery store. So I washed it out real good, and if I check it, a regular lid fits on, and a regular ring fits on that. So sometimes you can buy jars, like mayonnaise jars, that actually will fit these different lids, but that is not always the case. Here is a jar of Classico traditional pizza sauce, and we make pizza every single week, and this is Jim's favorite sauce. So I save these jars. They look like a canning jar. It even says Mason, but when I take the smallest lid, which is a regular size, look at that, it does not fit at all. The lid is too big for the jar. So just because it says Mason or Atlas or it looks like a canning jar, it doesn't mean that the lids are going to fit. Another thing to keep in mind, if you are buying brand new Mason jars from a store, they will include the ring and the lid, and you will be able to use those rings and lids multiple times with vacuum sealing. You can't do that with canning. At least not the lids. For canning, you can only use it 1 time and you're done. With vacuum sealing, you can use that lid until it doesn't seal anymore. If you are purchasing lids, you can buy just the flats. That's what I call these. The flats in these small boxes. Or you can get the lids and bands. I have been canning for decades, and to be honest, I have so many of those rings that when I purchase them, I try not to buy the package that has both. I try to just get lids. But over the last couple summers, it's been almost impossible to find just the flats. And so that's where I ended up buying some that are a combo. All right, so the first thing you need is jars, and you have to determine what you are vacuum sealing. If you're doing things such as cereal, flour, sugar, you're definitely going to want a larger jar. If you're doing something like maybe jelly beans, then you could get away with a pint-sized jar. For brand new jars, make sure that you wash and dry them in soapy water, and they have to be fully dried. So if you are vacuum sealing tonight, you would have wanted to wash these jars a couple hours earlier to make sure there is no moisture at all. If you still have some dampness in this jar and you put in your Cheerios, you could actually ruin the food that's in there. So start with a clean, completely dry jar. The next thing that you need is a vacuum sealer, and there are three main varieties that I'm going to go over today. The first one is the Food Saver. The second one is a chamber electric mason jar vacuum sealer, and the last one is the handheld vacuum sealer by Food Saver. Each one of these has some benefits over the other one. Some of them I prefer more than others, so I'm going to go over each one in detail. The Food Saver. This one is by far your most expensive option. It is roughly $200 because you have to have this port that is attached. If it doesn't have this attachment, you're not going to be able to seal in jars. You're only going to be able to vacuum seal in bags. So this one I did get at Walmart. I've seen them on Amazon. They are just around $200. This little handheld one is absolutely one of my favorites. First off, it was inexpensive. I got it on sale extremely cheap. It was at Ollie's. I think I spent $15. But for the one that I got, they are priced all the way up to $100. So it depends where you get it and what kind of deal you get. But for this one, to use it, I just have to take it off, put it on the top of my jar and seal it. So I don't need to pull out my huge Food Saver vacuum sealer. And the last one that I've been using is the electric mason jar vacuum sealer. To be honest, out of all three, this is my least favorite. It's easy to use. You don't need attachments like these, which we're going to talk about, but it doesn't have the power. And so I was pretty disappointed in this one. Yes, you can afford this one. It's cheap, it's easy, but it is not the best option. And I briefly mentioned there is an additional cost because you have to buy these two things separately. You need these for both the handheld Food Saver vacuum sealer and for my large one. These I ordered off of Amazon, and this one is the wide mouth and that is the regular. I wish they came with the vacuum sealer themselves, but it is a separate purchase. I think it was about $12. And that leads me to what exactly can you vacuum seal? You can vacuum seal any shelf-stable, dried foods. The list is pretty long, from dried soup mixes to crackers, macaroni and cheese, dessert mixes, pasta, any of those things, plus flour, sugar, rice, beans. It goes on and on. Anything that you have in your cupboard that stays in your cupboard can be vacuum sealed. What about salt and sugar? Those are two items I am asked over and over again if they can be vacuum sealed. The answer is absolutely. Neither of them is going to get moisture in there to make them hard because it's completely sealed and the air has been removed. So you can do both that. You can also do brown sugar. Yep, you heard me right. Brown sugar. And what about powders and spices? Absolutely. This is when I break out those teeny tiny jars. This one is my own homegrown basil, my dried banana powder, and my blueberry powder. And all of those I have dried myself and then vacuum sealed. Now I have at least a dozen different videos showing you exclusively how to vacuum seal different items, because there are some differences that you need to do if it's a powdered item, if it has packets in it. But today we are going to focus on basic how to seal food. And I found this Annie's Bunny Grahams chocolate chip organic, and it was on sale for $1.99. I'm going to show you how to vacuum seal it. I always say the toughest thing about vacuum sealing is finding the right size jar to fit your product. And sometimes it's just hit or miss. When I look at this box, I think, a pint looks like it's going to be too small, but a quart looks like it's going to be too big. So often, you just have to try and see what it fits in. As I mentioned, these Bunny Grahams were on sale. They had been $3.99 marked down to $1.99. So what's the first thing you need to look for? The Best By date. And when I looked, it says September 10th, 2023. Woohoo! It is not expired. And by vacuum sealing it, it will be good until September 2024. That is one of the best reasons that I vacuum seal. Another reason is it keeps all pests out of my food. No pantry moths, no mice. When you seal them in jars, there is nothing that's going to get in there unless the jar is broken, and I have never broken a jar. Did I mention the vacuum sealing is super simple? I think it's easier than canning, freezing, freeze drying, any of those drying. Vacuum sealing can easily be done in a few minutes by anybody. I'm going to pour this into a quart jar. I'm not sure it's going to fill it, but I think that's our best option. And by using this wide mouth funnel, I'm not going to get it all over the counter. And as expected, it did not fill the jar, but here's the good news. Unlike canning, you don't have to maintain a certain degree of headspace. So if this one's 3 inches, that is no problem. It's going to take a little bit longer to seal, but it will seal. First things first, I'm going to wipe the top to make sure none of those crumbs are on the top rim of my jar. Next, I place my flat right on the center, and then I'm going to find my regular mouth jar sealer. And this sealer snaps right on top, just like that. First, I'm going to show you my big food saver and how it works. So I've plugged it in. I'm going to turn it on so it has power. And then this port gets plugged into the top of my jar. And it takes a little oomph to get it down on there. Then I am going to push accessory at the top. So it can be quite loud. And it will shut off when it's finished. All right, and that took about 30 seconds. Now I'm going to take this part off, listen for the air. Yep, just like that, a pop, and then remove the lid. And when I say lid, I don't mean the lid of the jar. I mean the jar sealer. And so you're going to take that off. And what you have here is the lid of your canning jar. Now, you're going to pull on this to make sure it is sealed. You're going to push on the center to make sure it's down. And when you turn it upside down, nothing is coming out. This jar is sealed fully and completely. Now, the last thing you're going to do is put a ring on it. This is where it differs from canning. For vacuum sealing, you store it with the rings on. For canning, you store it with the rings off. So make sure you have that ring on and you are good to go. There are 2 ways you can mark the top of your jar. I like to put Best By 9/24. So I've added a year to the expiration date. And let's talk about that, Best By and expiration date. Expiration date means your product is no longer good. You rarely see that anymore. What you see are Best By, and that means that you can still eat these products past that date. It's just not going to be as nutritionally sound as if it was when it was first created, first put out on the shelf. So you lose a little bit of nutrition the longer you go. But Best By date, 9/24. The second way that you can mark your lid is to just put the date that you sealed it. So this one's the cereal, and I know it does not have BB, so it is not a Best By date. Instead, it is the date that I sealed it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to demonstrate how to use the other 2 sealers on this same jar. So I'm going to use a can opener. Now, yes, if you use this kind, you're going to end up poking it down there. So what I do is I put a barrier in between there, like a little piece of tissue, and pop it. So this does not put a hole in my lid. All right, and I popped the lid off. You can see a little indent, but that definitely did not go through it. And I am going to reseal this now using a different method. And so for this one, I'm going to use my handheld one. This is my second preference. And honestly, I use this one a ton because I keep this one in my kitchen. So it's small, it's rechargeable, and it's just super easy to use. First thing I do is pop off that marinate shield that was across the bottom. And then it's the same procedure. I'm gonna get my small jar sealer, put it on top. But I don't need the tubing with this one. So all I'm going to do is plug it into the hole on the top, just like that, and push down. Now, all I need to do is push vacuum. And that's all it took. So my big machine took about 30 seconds. This time I didn't count, but I'd say it was probably about 12, 13 seconds. And same as the other, pop it off, listen for the air. And then remove the jar sealer attachment. And just like the other, you check the seal. It is on there solid. Push in the center, doesn't move. It is sealed. So the next thing you do, put a ring on it. Now, the reason I use my handheld is often something like actually these crackers. I will open it up and shake out a few, but I'm not going to eat a whole jar of them. So then I will put this lid back on and very quickly seal it with my handheld one. It only takes a few seconds. And I remove the lid. You can see 2 little holes on that lid, but they again did not go through. Going to put that on, and this time I'm going to use the electric mason jar vacuum sealer. I purchased this off of Amazon. At first, I thought it was really cool. It was going to do great things. But you know what I discovered? The seal doesn't last. So I would be very cautious using this. I'll show you how to use it, but you're going to have to check those jars in your pantry to make sure they are still sealed. Use this one. You don't need the adapter, so you're just going to push it right on top of that jar. And it can be a little hard to get it on there. And then all you need to do is push power. Now, I do like how it counts how long it's taking. But I noticed it can take usually a minute and a half, and sometimes 2 minutes until it's done. We are at 1 minute and it's still going strong. We are nearing 2 minutes. All right, it was a full 3 minutes long, and it's telling you there's 66% charge. The one benefit that I did like is that you can just plug it in. You can plug it into your computer, you can plug it into an outlet, and it will recharge. But 3 minutes is a long time when you have a lot of jars to seal. Like the others, you're going to remove it from the top, then check the seal. And right now it is sealed. It is solid. It is good. But I have found that after a month or two, I go out and they're no longer sealed. So out of the 3 different vacuum sealers, this is by far my least favorite. I don't care much for this one at all. And there you have it. That is a quick beginner's help on how to vacuum seal. We went over the equipment that you need, what the benefits are from extending the best by date to keeping your food fresh and keeping the pests out. And then I showed you 3 different ways to vacuum seal, whether it was my large vacuum sealer, my handheld one, or the vacuum chamber. And out of all of these, I gotta say it, this one is just more powerful, and I love my Food Saver. If you are just beginning on your journey of preserving your food, I highly recommend a vacuum sealer. I think it is one of the easiest ways to get started. You don't even need to grow your own food. You can simply be vacuum sealing the items that you buy in the grocery store, but there are so many benefits. And I applaud all of you who are trying to do your best. You're doing a great job. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. And have a blessed day, everybody. Bye-bye.